¿Tengo que contar o es ahora? Muy buenas tardes. Desde el Departamento de Arquitectura de la Facultad de Arquitectura y Urbanismo de la Universidad de Chile estamos frente a una de nuestras actividades en que tenemos el placer de tener con nosotros a Michael Ashley. Él es uno de los socios de la oficina de Daniel Libeskind, quien va a ser presentado por nuestro decano, Manuel Amaya.
Muchas gracias, Gabriela. Bueno, la presentación de hoy es Acrobacias de escala XS-XL de Michael Ashley, que es director del estudio Libeskind. Muy buenas tardes a todas las autoridades académicas, académicos, estudiantes, egresadas y egresados. Y un saludo especial a nuestros invitados Michael Ashley, director del estudio Libeskind, y al arquitecto Matías Honorato, quien actuará como moderador y realizará los comentarios de la presentación. Junto con darle una cordial bienvenida, quiero partir por agradecer la invitación y especialmente celebrar la iniciativa de la directora del Departamento de Arquitectura, la profesora y arquitecta Gabriela Mansi Zamudio, y sus colaboradores, por la organización de este evento de arquitectura internacional. Quisiera comenzar presentando a quien será el moderador de esta actividad. Me refiero al profesor Matías Honorato, arquitecto de la Facultad de Arquitectura y Urbanismo de la Universidad de Chile, titulado en enero del año 2000. En el 2005-2006 realiza un Master in Science en Architecture en la Universidad de Columbia. Actualmente es profesor de taller 7 de la Facultad de Arquitectura y Urbanismo de la Universidad de Chile y además de impartir clases en la Universidad Tecnológica Metropolitana. A la vez de desarrollar actividades de docencia, ha participado en numerosos proyectos tanto nacionales como internacionales en donde ha podido abordar distintos programas y escalas. Quisiera resaltar lo importante que es para la Universidad de Chile, y especialmente para nuestra Facultad de Arquitectura y Urbanismo, la generación del conocimiento vinculado con la sociedad a través del impacto positivo de nuestras disciplinas, que hoy se hace tan necesario en nuestras aulas como referente para nuestros estudiantes y docentes. En este sentido, nuestra Facultad de Arquitectura y Urbanismo se enorgullece de presentar y darle la bienvenida al director del estudio Libeskind, Michael Ashley, quien será presentado por el profesor Honorato. Y para comenzar, quisiera hacer una muy breve reseña sobre el estudio Libeskind. El arquitecto Daniel Libeskind ha combinado una carrera proyectual muy prolífica con una vida docente muy activa. Luego de sus estudios de historia y teoría de la arquitectura en la Universidad de Exeter, ha impartido clases en la Academia de Artes de Cranbrook, ha sido profesor en la cátedra Frank Gehry de la Universidad de Toronto, en la Facultad de Diseño en Karlsruhe, en la cátedra Craig de la Universidad de Pensilvania y en la cátedra Louis Kahn de la Universidad de Yale. En el año 1989, junto a su esposa Nina, funda su estudio de arquitectura. Ese mismo año ganan el concurso para construir el anexo al Museo Judío de Berlín, que albergaría la colección de objetos relacionados con la historia judía y el Holocausto. Tras el reconocimiento obtenido por dicho proyecto, el estudio Daniel Libeskind recibe encargos del Museo del Imperial War Museum North entre 1997 y 2001 en Manchester, Inglaterra. Entre otros de sus trabajos aparecen el de 1998 en Osnabrück de Felix Nussbaum House, y la London Metropolitan en la University de Londres en 2003. El año 2003 también gana el concurso para la reconstrucción del World Trade Center, ubicado en la zona cero de los atentados del 11 de septiembre ocurrido el año 2001, en la ciudad de Nueva York. En este proyecto, inaugurado el año 2013, lleva a cabo la construcción de la bautizada Torre de la Libertad, edificio de gran escala, llegando a los 541 metros de altura. Debo agregar que el estudio ha diseñado numerosas obras en cada uno de los siguientes países. Me refiero a Alemania, Brasil, Canadá, China, Corea del Sur, Dinamarca, España, Estados Unidos, Filipinas, Italia, Irlanda, Israel, Lituania, Polonia, Reino Unido, Singapur, Suiza y posiblemente el Museo Antropológico en Iquique, en Chile. Algunas de las obras más famosas incluyen el edificio de oficina y de comercio minorista Bogen en Alemania, el lujoso complejo residencial Reflection en la bahía de Keppel de Singapur, el Teatro Gran Canal de Dublín en Irlanda, las ampliaciones del Museo Victoria y Albert en Londres, el Museo Ontario en Toronto, el rediseño del Potsdamer Platz de Berlín, la sala de concierto de la Filarmónica en Bremen, Alemania, y el Museo Industrial de Wuhan en China, por citar algunos. Su trabajo se ha caracterizado por su habilidad y capacidad para evocar la memoria cultural y plasmarla en edificios y estructuras contemporáneas, guardando siempre el equilibrio entre el pasado y el futuro. Las obras del estudio se caracterizan por un estilo muy original y osado, una arquitectura provocadora que mezcla formas angulares, planos que se entrecruzan, diseños rectilíneos que rompen con las estructuras tradicionales y que se ha aplicado con mucho éxito tanto en museos como edificios en alturas, obras artísticas y memoriales. Sus ideas arquitectónicas suelen apelar a los recuerdos y con nuevas visiones esperanzadoras del futuro, un concepto que lo simboliza perforando o ampliando los edificios históricos con elementos arquitectónicos geométricos rupturistas. Ha generado una propia visión de la arquitectura, producto de la comprensión de la obra, pensando en el contexto, en el presente y en la historia. Como fundador del estudio Libeskind, cree firmemente que su estudio es una colaboración entre arquitectos y diseñadores que piensan que la arquitectura es una práctica de optimismo. En cuanto a esto, quisiera compartir algunas de sus reflexiones que dicen: creo que la falta de expresión es más dañina para la arquitectura que el exceso de expresión. La arquitectura espectáculo ha generado un gran interés en el público. Las modas hacen daño a quien las sigue, no a quien las crea. La falta de ideas es más perjudicial que el exceso de imaginación. Y la arquitectura no es solo un ejercicio intelectual o abstracto, es una experiencia emocional como lo es la música. Quisiera referirme a alguna de sus obras, que ha sido premiado también en reiteradas ocasiones, de las cuales me gustaría mencionar las siguientes premiaciones en relación a sus obras. En 1998, el Time Magazine Best del 1998, el premio de diseño de la Felix Nussbaum House. El 2000, la medalla Goethe por el aporte cultural en el instituto. El 2001, el premio de arte Hiroshima a artistas cuyo trabajo promuevan la paz y el entendimiento internacional, donde ha sido el primer arquitecto en recibir el galardón. El 2003, la medalla Leo Beck por su labor humanitaria para promover la tolerancia y la justicia social. El 2004, el premio internacional Riva, nombrado como el primer embajador cultural de arquitectura por el Departamento de Estado de Estados Unidos. El mismo año fue miembro honorario de la Royal Academy of Art de Londres. El mismo año también Man of the Year Award del Museo de Arte de Tel Aviv. El 2006, Premio Internacional del Riva. El 2007, Medalla de Oro de Arquitectura en el National Art Club. Y ha sido nombrado doctor honoris causa en las universidades de Berlín, Edimburgo y Chicago. Finalmente, quisiera decir que nuestra Facultad de Arquitectura y Urbanismo de la Universidad de Chile se enorgullece de presentarles a Michael Ashley, director del estudio, y espero que disfruten esta presentación. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, señor decano. Buenas tardes a todos. Un placer tenerlos acá y poder compartir esta presentación y conversación con Michael Ashley, como mencionaba el decano, director de SDL, Estudio Daniel Libeskind. Y un placer tener también a Michael acá. En este minuto voy a hacer el disclosure de que la entrevista va a ser en inglés por motivos obvios. Tenemos a Michael acá y yo la voy a conducir. Entonces, ese es el formato en que se conducirá también la entrevista. Well, first than anything, let me thank Michael. Thanks a lot for coming here, taking your time, and sharing with us a lot of information that probably they'd be incredibly useful for all the students and the teachers here at school, and other schools that are actually watching at this point. So it will be an interesting tour that we're going to have through several scales: design and culture, architecture, urbanism, industrial design, you name it. You have a lot to share with us, and I'm very sure this way of thinking, it's something that all the audience will appreciate greatly. So first than anything, Michael, thanks a lot for coming. Okay. I'm just going to share quickly a biography of yours that I'm going to read, just so you know who Michael is, besides being a really, really good friend of mine. I got to disclose that. So Michael Ashley is an architect registered in New York City, where he spent most of his time as a principal and design lead with the Studio Libeskind. Here's Michael is granted the opportunity of working closely with the world-renowned architect Daniel Libeskind and other talented professionals on international projects of all scales and typologies. From urban planning to furniture design, skyscrapers to single-family homes, Michael enjoys abstract conceptual thinking and the process of design. He approaches each architectural project as a challenge in need of a solution where many exist. And he ultimately considers the combined input factors to draw out the possibilities in a way that can be achieved, yet strives to push boundaries between what is and what is imagined. Michael believed architecture is making of possibilities, is the making of possibilities. Born in 1974 in California, Michael enjoys music, arts, and is embedded with a passion for nature and outdoors. He trained into classical piano for 14 years and was an aggressive drummer in several bands during his youth. Michael grew up pursuing creativity through skateboarding and music, but also learned the value of teamwork, playing organized sports. Currently, he lives in Manhattan, where he enjoys urban life, fixed gear bikes, traveling, and spending time with his wife and son. In 1997, Michael received a professional five-year bachelor degree in architecture from Andrews University in Michigan, and master's advanced architectural design from Columbia University in New York in 2006. He interned in Berlin and has worked all over the globe while based in California and New York. Beyond this, Michael pursues the theoretical practice mash art, engaging in the spirit of perception through architectural competitions, object making, traveling, and writing. Michael has also been a guest critic at Columbia University, Pratt Institute, Parsons New School of Design, NYIT, United Nations International School, among other, and speaks publicly about architecture. Okay, so what else is to say? Thanks a lot, Michael. And what else to say? I just want you to start if you can, please. You're mute now. You're mute.
Thanks, Matthias, and thank you, Manuel, for inviting me to share with the audience a little bit. I'm gonna share and we'll just jump right in. As you've heard by now, my name is Michael Ashley. I'm a principal at Studio Libeskind. We're based in New York. And today I'm going to share with you several projects, 5, that are at different scales, just to kind of explore what the idea is behind scale and the body, but through the design process and through architecture. First project that I'm going to share with you is the Vilnius Downtown Tower, and that's based in Lithuania, the capital city in Vilnius. And it's a vertical building, 20 stories. It's about 84 meters tall. And it's located in the new city center, which is just north of the river. You can see the circle here. And it's on axes with a pedestrian bridge that crosses through the river and the park that kind of links the old city with the new city. And when you're looking across this bridge and across the river, you can see the new city, the towers rising in contrast to the old city. But one of the ideas and planning of urban design that the city has enforced is to create kind of this urban hill, they call it. So there's going to always be a shaped skyline, and the towers have to fit within that. Our building is right on axis. It's shown here visualized in blue. And there it is a little bit closer. It's really a 2-part building. One is the low-rise podium on the left, and then there's a 20-story tower on the right. It's also a mix of uses. We have a hotel on the lower floors with office above. And then through the middle is an open atrium, which is also on axes with that urban bridge and the connection between the two cities. Here's another view of what it will look like when it's completed along the main street here to the north. And then looking back towards the old town and across the river. We've created a auto court in the front. There's also a pavilion here, which gives you direct pedestrian access underneath the building and continues the public thoroughfare all the way through to the old city, through the park and bridge, and then through the new city. Looking at the building in section, you can see the 2 parts in the section on the left. The pink represents hotel. So we have hotel on 5 floors with the lobby below. The blue represents office building. So the lobby is on the tower side with office floors up above. It's all stacked over 3 levels of parking. In the middle, you can see this atrium, which is just kind of a winter garden. It gets pretty cold in Vilnius during the winter. So this is kind of a transitory inside-outside space that will be filled with tables and chairs and restaurants spilling out onto it. So we imagine it to be alive throughout the seasons, throughout the year. This is a look at the ground floor. So we have the hotel lobby on the left, where you enter in here. I hope you could see my cursor moving. You have the office on the right, and then through the middle is the atrium and the connection, which you see shown in the red arrows. There's a restaurant with views towards the river, towards the south, that can also spill outside and into the atrium as well. Here's highlighted the atrium that goes through the building and some views of what that will look like. This is a connector bridge that connects the hotel floors across the atrium on either side, which you can see in another view of this cutaway section here. So the atrium is really a full height glazed enclosed space. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a pedestrian passage that continues below the atrium. So the hotel and the office can be separate from that, and this pedestrian passage can go straight through. There's actually a pretty lively commercial area to the north in the new city, and then the park and the old city to the south. So it's a vital connection in the urban fabric. Here you can see it at the parking level, where we split the parking to provide that connection. One last view of the atrium and what it would look like if you were to look straight up towards the ceiling. This is a view back out of the atrium, looking back towards the building from the south. And just to take you up through some floor plans, a typical hotel plan, it's a very standardized hotel. So we had to use a modular of the hotel room and fit that into an interesting way to fit it into our formal geometry, which is always a challenge when you're using basic building blocks to try to do something different. The 7th level is the top level of the hotel, and there's some amenity spaces, including a fitness area and some exterior terraces. This terrace here has a nice view to the south, overlooking the park and the river, which you can see here and towards the old city. And then the typical office floors in the tower above. These will be for lease, so the tenant is unknown. The floors could be split into 2. They could be complete floors, or a single tenant could take multiple floors. And these are the top of the tower where the floor plate gets a little bit smaller. The last view from the north, looking back south towards the old city. And this is what the site looks like 3 weeks ago. We got these photos. So it is underway, and we're starting to see steel come out of the ground. All of the underground work has been completed, and the parking levels are finished. So they've topped off to ground level and have started building up above. So next I want to share with you a shift in scale, going from a mid-rise tower building in Europe to a small gallery for furniture design that is based in London. And this all started with the idea of making a dining room table. And so we created a dining table that could break apart into 3 separate pieces, as you see from one of Daniel's early sketches here, and actually be 3 tables that could be rearranged and then combined into 1 table. So this is what the table looks like. You could see how there's joint lines in the glass, and that's where the 3 panels come apart. And each table could be a standalone table to fit 6 people, or combined all together to fit 18 to 20 people. The idea was to create these linear lines as a structural framework that really created a directionality, but also a layering. And those are always continuous as the table gets put into its place. The base is made out of stainless steel and the top is glass. We also did some other pieces for the same collection. This is a console, which is a narrow kind of entry hall table. This is two different versions of it. The one on the right is in polished stainless steel, and that was the original prototype. But when we built this one, we realized that the front legs, which are completely vertical, were needing a little bit more stabilization. So we introduced a diagonal here. The second prototype is done in bronze, and it achieves the stability that we were looking for. We did some chairs. These are called the elemental split chairs. And these are more of a monolith chair, so very heavy. They could be used for exterior purpose. What you see here on the left is a bronze with a polished stainless steel, two different metals coming together. And then on the right is a patina blue bronze with carved white marble. This is also for the same collection. We did this chair called the Sky Trap, and it's basically an open framework of stainless steel, and the black portions that you see are carbon fiber. So this is actually a pretty lightweight chair because of the materials and the openness of it, but it's very strong and it could support, hundreds of pounds. And here's a picture of Daniel at the gallery opening, drawing on the wall, having some fun. So we're also designing for 2022 a next phase of this collection. We're going to introduce dining chairs to go along with the table. And here's a picture of them, one with arms, one without, as well as a desk. This will be done in stainless steel with a brushed finish. A bench, also in stainless steel. And the idea of these guys is more of folded planes, folded plates, and then we have these, the subtraction of the lines from the dining table showing up again here in voids. And we're also going to have a mirror, which is basically a wall composition where the customer can buy as many pieces as they want. There's going to be, I think, 9 different types, and they can buy and combine them in any manner they want. They arrange them and compose them on the wall. So now we're going to go to south of France in Nice and look at a beautiful beachside community, which is all red tile roofs, sunshine year round. Our project is located where this red dot is, right next to the train station. You can see the city center here dashed in yellow, of course, the sea to the south. These lines here are the train tracks and the automotive highway. And then this dashed line, it represents a major commercial street, which connects the waterfront to the train station, which is where our project is located. Here you can see it imposed into an aerial view. And to contrast all the red tile roofs, we're proposing a blue stainless steel panel to reflect both the sea as well as the forms of the mountains that you can see in the distant skyline. Here's a view of what that will look like when it's completed. This is a mixed-use project. It's really a horizontal skyscraper, if you will. It's 150 meters long, 6 stories high, and it's hotel and office space above 2 levels of commercial, retail, which serves as a connector between the train station and the tramway that goes along the commercial street. So we're really creating a 2-level pedestrian experience along a retail frontage with hotel and office above. And some views of what that might feel like. There's a view from the station. There's also an underground auditorium for 600 people and a restaurant with views of the city over the rooftops that you can see here in green. Different ways to access the different programs. Just some views of what this looks like in section and elevation. The glass is all double skinned, so we maintain thermal comfort without using too much energy. Here you can see the hotel room layout in pink, as well as a typical office layout in blue. And then the minty green is a restaurant on the top floor. View from the station, view from the commercial street. And here's where we are. This is about 4 weeks ago. So this is a picture of the steel underway, and it should be done in about another 12 months. You can see the forms taking shape. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I want to show you a small project that has just broken ground in London, and it's a Maggie's Center at the Royal Free Hospital. If you're not familiar with Maggie's, they're post-cancer care places that are non-institutional feelings. So if somebody, and they're always attached to a hospital, so if somebody goes into the hospital and you can imagine receiving bad news for the first time, you've just been told that you have cancer and there's no place for you to go except out in the corridor, and you have to deal with this emotional news. The mission of Maggie's is to give these types of people at that moment, and then all the way through their care and their family beyond, is to give them a place to go that feels more comforting and more domestic, more like a house, and more welcoming. So we're designing a Maggie's Center that sits in the back lot of the Royal Free Hospital here. And it's really a small site. They didn't have a lot of space, but we fit 500 square meters on 3 levels of use there. And the idea is that it's really kind of these curvy forms that are very organic, blended in with the landscape. And Daniel's big idea was like a butterfly coming out of a cocoon. So looking at the ground level, the main entrance is here, and you enter into a gallery, and it's really all open plan with different rooms spread out throughout. And here's a view from below. The exterior skin is all a pre-treated timber panel. It's prefabricated, so it's going to be digitally CNC'd and manufactured on a frame and then transported to site. And the panels are all the way from the ground to the top is one panel, up to 2 meters wide. And they're all leaning in different ways and then shaped around the windows, creating this complex geometry. Here's a view of the main entrance. When you step inside, the goal was really to create a welcoming feel, almost like you're walking into a house. It's not like you meet a reception desk and you have to talk to somebody right away. People could come in and they don't have to talk to anybody. There will be staff there, but typically they're back further in the kitchen area. So if you walk in the front door, we were just looking at an image in this front lobby space here. The kitchen is towards the rear of the building. So you can see here. And staff will be there to welcome you, offer you a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and just let you go at your own pace. So it's really about healing, about welcome and warmth. Different views of the kitchen, just a large open space. You can see that we're embedded into a hillside towards the rear, and then the windows really just give you views of the garden. This is the other side of the ground level plan, and it really feels more like a living room. So there's a fireplace, wood burning fireplace, and just some sofas and soft seating where people can gather, talk, just to be by themselves, to contemplate, to do what they need. This is the first floor plan. So it's open to below over the lobby area with the stairs coming up. And then there's a private counseling room here. This edge along this balcony has just places for seating. And then in the back, there's a flexible room, which can be used for yoga or Tai Chi, can be used for different activities, painting. Here's a view of that room. And then the second level, the top floor, is a small roof pavilion. So there's a space here where we have some seating and games. And then the rest is exterior. All this is an exterior terrace with views to the sky. The parapet walls come up pretty high to screen all of the surrounding noise that's outside. Noise, not like audible noise, but distracting things, and to really offer a sense of peace. And this is a view inside the roof pavilion and the roof terrace. Last view from above. You can see there's also an exterior stair that leads you back down towards the ground level and the path through the landscape and the garden area, so you can experience the gardens that way. What the building looks like in section. All the walls are inclined and curved and leaning. The challenge right now that we're having, I mentioned this is just broken ground, so we're in construction. The challenge that we're having is that in the UK, they really struggle with incline walls in terms of fire testing. So there's lots of treatments that are going on these walls, and it's more a labor shortage and a time scale crunch than anything else. So if anybody mentions anything about Brexit, it really affects the building industry. Here's the last view towards the back entrance. That door leads directly into the kitchen. And the last project that I'm going to share with you this afternoon is a tower that's just been completed in Milan. This is a 30-story office building. And this was finished a few months ago. And it's part of a larger master plan where in the center of the master plan, here is our tower in the red circle, but there's two other towers, 3 total, and the other towers are done by Zaha Hadid and Arata Isozaki, each having their own low-rise buildings to go with it. So there's a shopping mall next to Hadid's building, a small pavilion next to Isozaki's, as well as some housing blocks where Hadid did this block here, and we did this block, Studio Libeskind did this block, and this second parcel is under construction now. But we're going to look at the tower, which was just recently completed. So there you can see the 3 towers. Ours was the third of the set. Hadid on the left, Isozaki on the right, Libeskind in the middle, all around a central plaza, which is lined with retail. And actually, BIG is creating another building in the back of this to create kind of a gateway along this axis. And a view from the backside. So one of the challenges of this project was that we had curved the building in section. And as a vertical building, that's a difficult task just because elevators don't really curve in section, they go vertically, as you know. This is the north elevation and the south elevation. So 30 stories, it's 180 meters to the top. This whole area up here is really crown and mechanical. This slice that you see with this linear hatching, those are all solar panels. So we're harvesting energy at the top of the building. Here you can see in section the curve that we're dealing with. And so we just had to have the elevators, the low rise are in the back half of the building, let's say here, and then they stop and the high rise continue up here. So we had to step the elevators in order to fit them inside this volume. Just a little detail of the skin. It's all very standard Class A office space. This is the ground level plan. And what's interesting, as I was just mentioning, the elevator core, that stays in the same place, but the volume around the core is really moving. And this is a view of the lobby. So these are photographs just completed. You can see the lean on the exterior columns. And then on the interior core, we also created a feathering of marble and wood that kind of blends together, reminiscent of the Duomo in Milan. Here's the front desk. These black areas are LCD panels, so the graphics can continuously change. Here's another version of one of those LCD totems where they can have advertising or just any type of graphic inside the building in the lobby space. This is between the lower lobby and the upper lobby. And just the typical lower plan. So this is level 5, level 10, level 15. You can see how the body is shifting around the core. But we always manage to maintain an ideal depth of office space around. Here's a view of one of the offices. After the pandemic, office space has really become less about private rooms and more about open workspace and collaboration. In the view from the ground, you can see the other 2 towers framing the PwC tower, the solar panels at the top. There's a view looking up right underneath it. Just some detail of the crown. The crown was quite challenging structurally, just to create the form and to get all of the technology that is embedded in there. One of the biggest challenge was facade maintenance. So we have some panels that open up where boom cranes are on a track. This solid level that you see here is actually the track that these cranes can reach out and clean the facade on. Here's a view inside that space. We tried to make this publicly accessible, but it just turned out that it wasn't feasible for the pro forma of the client. So it's probably the most magnificent space in the building, in my opinion, and it's all for technical purposes. Some closing shots. The 3 towers. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Really good samples of the work. And I particularly appreciate the fact that you didn't only show photographs and renderings and nice pictures of it, but you took the time to show us also floor plans and details and sections. That's to me is very important because it speaks about 2 levels of work that you guys have, which is exceptional. In one level, you guys challenge yourselves to sort of create this language of work, okay, which is sort of something that challenges your constructive methods, your programmatic diagrams, and so on and so forth. And in that way, especially for students here, like they might think that it's just a matter of just shaping something and then somehow magically it becomes a building, which is not. And there's a lot of work in between. So it's really interesting how you showed us the way, the process involves a lot of technical resolution, so it can manage to keep the design the way you guys wanted it to be. So it's actually both. There's a lot of intellectual work, like artistic work, which goes was along with technical knowledge, expertise. And that actually is very interesting. Even something very small, like when you mentioned how you're going to put the crane to basically clean up all the whole facade. well, when there is a will, there is a way. I think that's an important moral for this. So going back to the main subject.
There's always a solution. It's just a matter of finding it and weighing all of the pros and cons. But you're right. I think architecture is more than just the finished product. It's really about the process. And we can create fantastic shapes and forms and big ideas. It's always based on an idea somehow. But we've been looking for that magic button. We still can't find it. I mean, I have my keyboard here and I'm looking for it. If you find the magic button that just makes it happen, please let me know.
I'll do so. Yeah. Well, just want to jump on the kind of the main kind of subject for this talk, which is scale, like jumping on scales. To begin with, how do you guys manage to move from designing a chair, a small bench, or even a coffee table or a table, and then you have a large building, and then you have a master plan, an urban, like a piece of a city in the end, right? So there's increasing steps of complexity that goes along with, evidently, moving from one scale of work to another, right? So my question is, how do you guys manage to pile up the experience or the learning, if you will, that you get from the smaller objects, and progressively learn from those exercises or those types of work into a very large, for example, master plan? Is there any learning, like from the smaller scale to the upper scale, or vice versa? How does it work for you guys?
I think scale is kind of a funny thing, because the process is always the same. The projects are always different. And it's just a matter of how you navigate through that process in order to achieve an outcome that you're looking for. And sometimes that outcome is just to make, nice drawings and a pretty picture. Sometimes it's to make a full building or realize a master plan, whatever it is. One thing that I have noticed, though, is the amount of collaboration that it takes. The larger the project, the more people need to be involved. The smaller the project, the quicker and easier it is in terms of how many people are involved. So like for furniture, for example, it could take 3 people and a fabricator just to do the whole thing. And like one person in our office, one person in the client's office, and another person in the fabricator's office, all just working together and realizing something. When you're looking at a building, you're looking at teams of people, engineering teams, you have authorities in the cities, you have client teams, you have financial teams, you have the design teams. Everybody's coming together, and there's a lot more collaboration that has to take place in order to realize each step of the way. So I think scale has an effect in how many people are working on something, but in terms of design, it's always just the same process. You approach something, you try to make something that you like work, you test it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You try something else, see if that works, see if it's better, see if it's more effective, more cost effective, more efficient, more easily realized. There's always going to be alternate ways to come to a conclusion. And that conclusion might be different than what you first imagined, but it could be better than what you thought at first. And you just have to go through those pressures and that process to realize it.
Yeah, I agree with that. In a way, whenever you have to jump in scale, you need to add more people, more collaboration, because there's more complexity and so on and so forth. And but yeah, the process, it somehow remains similar. That leads me to my next reflection, which is based upon language, and say like politics of language and design, right? And there is definitely something to be said about the how we do things, and sometimes the how tells you a lot more about the thing than the what it is. Like how is it? Sometimes it's even more important than what is it, or there's a lot of the what in the how. Like the decision in which language you're going to work with sort of defines a framework for understanding it. And I think that's quite appealing, particularly in the work of your office, right? So there is a set of kind of geometrical, let's say, modifications of the initial form that usually takes place in a similar way, like, and regardless of the scale. So I'm just wondering how important is the preserving the language, if you will, on different scales of the work, some kind of signature, obviously, from SDL.
I don't know if the importance of preserving the language is the right way to describe it. Mm-hmm. There's definitely an aesthetic that Daniel is attracted to, and that he likes, and that he returns to time and again, and that we test over and over and over. And the more times you do something in a certain direction, the better you get at it. So it becomes more natural each time you do it. Mm-hmm. Saying that, I think he's also interested in breaking away from stereotypes and trying different things and introducing new formal geometries, but through a similar process. So, he might have a collection of projects that are sharp and angular and be recognized for that. But at the same time, he might also be interested in exploring other directions, like the Maggie Center, for example. Mm-hmm. There's no corners on that project that are sharp. So I think it just depends. And sometimes, the client wants exactly that. Like in the Vilnius Tower, the client said, we want your signature look, we want sharp angles, and we proposed something. They said, that's not sharp enough. Let's try something else. So it depends. There's a lot of factors that go into it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes certain regions of the world will say, we don't like any angles that are sharper than 90 degrees. So then what do you do there? You either have right angles, or you try to, introduce curves, or have open angles and different geometries in that sense. So it just depends on the situation, and you take those inputs, those factors, and you take them through the process and see where the design leads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think on that topic, we can definitely recognize, the variety of families of work that this design approach Daniel has, and it's quite interesting. I mean, there are some things always present about, the absence of something that is, to me, it's fascinating how Daniel's architecture is always speaking about the presence of the absent by the means of the void and all this kind of, say, take out operation, like voiding operation, right? So you recognize the existence of something that is not there. And I can see that even from, obviously, the Jewish Museum in Berlin, but you have hints of that even in that small table you show me, where those lines were subtracted to the surface of steel, right? So in that way, I think there's a narrative that is always present to the design of Daniel, which is quite interesting to me. Personally, I remember going to the Jewish Museum and having this kind of revelation that architecture, as he put it himself, I'm quoting, architecture should not be comforting, right? And that was crazy to me. It's like, what? How is this possible that we can create architecture that is actually not comforting? It's actually demands for showing brutality and horrors. And to me, when I was in the chamber of the Holocaust over there, I remember having a terrible architectural experience in a good way. So because it's meant to reflect on that. So
it's a very powerful space, yes.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, you have a small hint of light that reminds you will never get out of it. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But having said that, it's really interesting how this learning from his own language repeated and repeated and repeated again, it basically defines aesthetic that is very, very, of his own. And I want to know a little bit of, what you feel about this sort of development of smaller strategies.
Well, like you said, it is become his own because it's been repeated several times. And it's a language that I think can be transferred across cities throughout any type of building, because it's not really about the function inside the building at a certain point, although that is important and we have to make that work. But it's really about the impression that the building gives to the passersby and to the rest of the surrounding city. So it's a chance to cause a hesitation. So you're not just walking by the same, then all of a sudden, boom, like something's jumping out at you. It's a chance to make an impact in the viewer's perception, in a sense. So in that case, I think that it really does transfer over any type of building. But then saying that, there's certain buildings that are more accepted to having that kind of geometry or that kind of formal approach to it. More civic buildings, for example. We've done it in private residence to have an angled language like that before. And we've done it in commercial buildings. But yeah, there's a time and there's a place for everything. And I think that it's more about his personal attraction and obsession to a point, a sharp point, with these geometries that we keep using them.
Different subject. I just wanted to know, because one of the signature initial kind of definitions of Daniel's work was evidently the incredible drawings he made. So he basically depicted situations that were not visible to the eye by the means of the abstraction of the architecture. Architecture becomes a drawing in itself, and it's not just the floor plan. It's a lot more than that. You remember many of them. You guys have incredible models and
the chamber works and the micro megas.
Exactly. So how important is the role of drawing in your practice today?
We use drawing for everything. These days, it's really about modeling first, but a model is really a drawing. You experience it on a 2D screen, even though it's a digital model. And then from that model, you can create any type of view or line work that you need. But just to back up a little bit, you mentioned his drawings that he did back in the 80s and 90s. And that was really a glimpse into the mind of Daniel Libeskind and how he sees the world. And it still impresses me. I've worked with him for 15 years, and it still impresses me sometimes the ideas that he comes up with, because you think you might understand a certain direction that would interest him, and then all of a sudden it's just, no. Here's what we're going to do. And it's completely nothing you would have thought of. And it's refreshing and inspiring that somebody who's been doing this for so long can continue to innovate and come up with abstract ideas. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's important. I have one more question. Because of the nature of Daniel's work, it somehow relates disciplines that are not necessarily always tied. Like, you have architecture, you have industrial design, you have urban design, and even art. So from what you've seen, Daniel's work, your work, how do you guys manage to sort of feedback from different disciplines to kind of get an architecture that is very unusual in the regular architecture world, the architecture, as you mentioned, that can produce hesitation, right? Somehow this architecture, this design, even the chairs, what is meant to produce is not comfort, but doubt, but hesitation. That beautiful moment of hesitation that we talk about back at school, right? When the doubt happens, that's the very, let's say, quintessence of the architecture definition, in my opinion. So do you guys get from arts, from music, from design? How do you produce this feedback?
Yeah, between creating architecture and cities and furniture and products, I think as long as it's a physical object, the process is the same, and you still depend on that design process to go through and discover and test and to try things and to observe things and to come up with a final answer. You mentioned music. That's a little bit more abstract, and I think we don't really deal in music, although a lot of us in the studio have musical backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
I think music does come through in Daniel's work. He was a prodigy in his youth, playing music, and you could see it just in some of the rhythms and some of the chaos that comes through. But on a daily dialogue, we don't really think abstractly like that in terms of audible form. It's more about physical form for us. But yeah, it always goes back to the process and testing ideas and eliminating ones that we don't feel are the best answer, and then proceeding with ones that we do.
Perfect. Well, I don't want to take a lot more of your time. Thanks a lot. It's been really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope we'll have you eventually over here to share some of what you have and to show you what you're doing here at school, which is getting very, very exciting, gotta tell you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I hope that the students and the rest of the audience were able to gain something from this little sneak peek. And it's a pleasure for me to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Right, thanks a lot. Okay, so we're gonna set it up here. And muchas gracias a todos por la asistencia. No, creo que no hay preguntas hasta ahora. Bueno, y no habiendo preguntas, bueno, cerraremos, concluiremos la entrevista acá, ¿verdad? Muchas gracias a todos. Hasta luego.